You can narrate.
Good afternoon, everyone from Brooks River. My name is Mike Fitz, and I'm a park ranger here at Katmai National Park and Preserve. And we're looking at a mother bear and her 3
is going and getting positioned for a better view of the cubs as they walk around the platform. And when he gets in place, I will go ahead and I will switch back to him, and he can start taking it from there. And he may be, see if I can, yep, there, it looks like it's pretty good. He can't hear me and I can't hear him, so I don't know if we're talking over one another, so I'm going to be quiet.
Ja,
Were you talking, Mike?
I was not.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know if you were talking. So.
They thought we lost the audio.
Oh, okay. So no, I was not talking.
This is the first time we've tried to use this new switching system that we have, so we can try to take you to where the action is as we're up here. And we hadn't quite worked it out yet, who was going to be talking when, since the sow with cubs showed up sort of right as we were getting ready to start. In case you missed the beginning audio, my name is Roy Wood, and I am the Chief of Interpretation for Katmai National Park and Preserve.
And my name is Mike Fitz, and I'm the media ranger here at Katmai.
And we want to thank you for joining us on another one of our Ranger Chats. What we want to talk about today is the thing that's on a lot of people's minds around here, and that would be cubs.
Lots of cubs.
Lots of cubs. Would you say that we have a plethora of cubs?
I would say we probably have a plethora of cubs.
I would say so too. You were totaling them all up just before the talk began. How many did you come up with?
Yeah, we have at least 15 cubs here, 6 mothers of different ages. So we have a mother. I guess I'll start with the least amount of cubs, work our way to the with some of those first year cubs up to the oldest cubs that we have.
Okay.
So we have a mother with 1 spring cub, and she hasn't been identified yet. I had a guess, thought maybe she was number 39, but I'm really not sure if that's that bear or not. Okay. So don't quote me on that. It could be another bear. We have a mother with 1 spring cub. We have a mother with 3 spring cubs, and that one looked an awful lot like number 482 Brett, who's not in our bear ID book. She just kind of slipped through the cracks over the last few years. I mean, she never made it in, and we actually only saw her once or twice, I think, this spring. And then we have a mother with 4 spring cubs, and that's number 402, who is well known on the cams.
Correct.
And every year that every time she's out and about, we try to get her on camera. So that's it for the spring cubs. We also have 2 mothers with yearling cubs. We have the one that we were just looking at down below, number 132. She has 3 yearling cubs in their 2nd summer. And there's also another bear that really hasn't shown up much on the cams at all, and that's 813, who's nicknamed Nostril Bear. She has kind of funny shaped nostrils, and she has 2 yearling cubs. And then we have 435 Holly, who's probably the most famous bear of all.
In the world.
In the world, probably. So she has a mixed age litter. She's so famous because she has not only a 2.5-year-old cub, but a yearling cub. And bears don't normally have mixed age litters like that, but 435 Holly adopted that 2.5-year-old, now 2.5-year-old last year when it was an abandoned yearling.
And for those of you that aren't aware of all the family history, you can read a lot of this in our Bear ID book that we have. But in a nutshell, 402 abandoned her remaining cub last year in the middle of July up here at the falls, and that is the cub that Holly adopted. So it's been a really interesting year or so for us trying to keep tabs on all of these cubs and these really interesting, almost unheard of relationships. That adoption is not something that bears do, as Mike said. So that's been pretty cool for us to be able to witness it firsthand and share that with the people on the cams. And we were going to write it up. Did Troy or anybody write it up?
We haven't yet.
We're still going to write it up because it just doesn't happen, that often.
And the thing that makes, kind of our experience here and the camp viewers' experience here fairly unique is the ability to watch the behavior of that family. All the other records of bears adopting cubs we talked about this before on some of our chats. It's just the fact that it happened.
Yeah.
A mom had 2 cubs, and then the next time the biologist checked on it, she had 4 cubs. But they really don't note anything about the behavior. So I think that's something that's very interesting to follow.
And we've got not just the behavior that was observed from the time of the adoption, but we've known Holly and many of her behaviors around here for 10 years. And 402, she also goes back that far. I'm trying to think when I first recalled her.
I think she had her first litter maybe in 2004.
Yeah.
And this is her 5th. So she has 5 litters, and the most recent one has 4.
And she's very good at making babies, but maybe not as good at keeping them. She does not have the best of track record. Do we know of any that she has successfully raised to the sub-adult stage?
I think her first year, her first litter, maybe she had weaned or thought to have weaned.
Okay.
And maybe one other litter too. But I think that highlights just how difficult it is to raise cubs. Even if you're an experienced mom, there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to keep those cubs through their 2nd or 3rd summer.
I also wanted to mention one other thing before we go any further into it. Actually, 2 other things. If you'd like to ask us questions, go beneath the video that's playing of us. Go beneath the icons, and you can ask your questions there. And if your question gets selected by the folks at Explore, probably Courtney today, they will transfer it to us on this iPad. So we'll be looking down a lot at the iPad. We're also looking down more than normal because we're looking right into the sun this time of the day. That was some poor planning on our part, that in order to get you the view of the falls and perhaps some bears behind us, we've got to look up into the sun. And so it's a little bright right now, and I apologize for the shadows across our faces, but we'll try to do our best to look you dead in the eye when we're talking. Let's see. So when the program was just starting, we had the sow with the cubs down here, and you had said that they had just finished nursing. Was that group?
It was that family.
That was that group? Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
When they were down here, before we started and we were setting up, they were squabbling over fish. And one of them grabbed a fish and ran away. When did they start eating solid food like that? When did the bears start eating? That's one of the questions here.
Probably, the spring cubs that are out and about are starting to eat solid food right now. For the first, few months of their life, they're completely dependent on mother's milk. But now is the age for them of really accelerated growth. When they're born, they're only about a pound, so they're really, really small inside of the den. They nurse the rest of the time inside of the den, so for about another 3, 4, sometimes 5 months, if the mother comes out of the den pretty late. And when they come out of the den, they weigh about 12 pounds. But when they go back into the den for their first real full denning cycle, we weighed one a few years ago that we found dead. But so that was kind of sad. However, it gave us a really interesting learning opportunity because when we weighed it weighed over 60 pounds. So they grow exponentially throughout their first summer. And this is the time of the year where they're really going to start to not only grow substantially from mother's milk, but also from the other foods that they can find out in nature. And they investigate almost everything that mother investigates. If mother chews on something,
Yep.
they chew on it.
I see them chewing on everything, and I have seen the tiniest of cubs get in there and like proudly prance off with like a fish tail in its mouth. I mean, they're trying, even when they're little tiny 20-pounders, they're really trying to eat. And that's all what contributes to that rapid growth that we see this time of the year. So the second half of that question is, if they are nursing with their mothers all spring and winter time, and even now they're still nursing, but they're also starting to eat solid food, when will they stop nursing?
Well, when they're weaned, I think, in a few years.
Given the opportunity, I have seen 3.5-year-olds nurse with their mother, like when Flo had cubs that were as big as she was, and they would still nurse if she would allow them to. So, they're coming back over there now, or somebody is.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a single mother right now.
I just saw ears go by out of the corner of my eye. So, yeah, when they stop nursing, that's the time that the mother would probably come into estrus, and that would be the time to chase them away so that they would be less likely to be harmed by a male that was drawn to the female in estrus.
It's important to note too, though, that they don't nurse inside of the den. The mother, except for the spring cubs, when they're first born, those first few months that they're in the den, they'll nurse. But when the cubs go back into the den this winter, they're not going to nurse, because it probably would just be too much of an extreme caloric load on the mother. I mean, for those spring cubs, she needs to produce about a quart of milk per cub per day, which is a huge amount of energy, considering that bear milk is extremely fat rich. It's many times greater than a human's. It's something like 30% fat. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's a lot. So when they're in the den this year, all the cubs that you see right now, they're going to be relying on their own body fat to survive this winter.
Yeah, people ask us that all the time about, are they nursing in the den? And we don't go into any of the dens, but from scientific studies that have been done in locations where they have captive bears, you can pretty easily see that hibernating bears are not nursing in the second or perhaps third year their offspring. Questions are really rolling in. I guess we got some Holly questions going because of us mentioning Holly, and also because, as we said, she's probably the most famous, at least female bear in the world right now, sow in the world right now. So the question is, when do the cubs start fishing on their own? Like, have we seen Holly's actual genetic offspring fishing yet, which would be a yearling?
Trying, but maybe not doing so well.
Yeah, subadults don't always do that well, so it's to be expected. But if some of you remember, about a year ago, when we were doing one of these chats, we had the abandoned offspring of 402, which we had nicknamed Cub Adult because he was on his own and was still kind of a cub, but was fulfilling the role of a subadult. In the middle of doing one of our chats, there was a bunch of radio chatter that he had actually gotten a fish. And what we don't know is how alive was that fish. It may have been, completely dead or only mostly dead, but he got a fish and trotted it off in the woods and ate it, and Sherry came up and had the picture. You remember that, right? Mm-hmm. So we know that they're capable of doing it, but they're not going to be capable of going to the falls and displacing a large male bear in order to fish. They're going to be around the edges, probably picking up scraps when they can and trying to do it. But part of this whole process of learning how to fish is trying. They've got to build that muscle memory to know how to run and lunge and snatch those fish out of the water. But they try, and that's what makes this area so often quite good at watching the young bears try to fish, because they're away from the falls and they have shallow water here. They can see the fish in the riffles, so they run around and just usually make quite a spectacle of themselves.
Later in the season, though, the fishing will become easier as the salmon begin to spawn and die. So as the cubs grow and they gain more experience, they're going to be able to find fish a little bit easier as the season progresses.
Yeah, especially September. Yeah, you and I, we've talked about this. We could catch fish in September. We could survive.
And I have.
Just by you picked it up on that one chat that one time.
Yeah, you can walk into the river and find dead fish all over the place. So the cubs are going through a learning process. Everything that mother does, they're going to try to mimic. They're going to smell the same stuff. They're going to taste the same stuff that mother does. The younger cubs, they need a lot less fish than mom on a daily basis, and they need a lot less fish over the course of the season. to fatten up to survive the wintertime hibernation too. So if you're looking at a cub and you see that it hasn't really gotten that much food, it's, don't fret about it. It's probably going to be okay, because overall, since it's a smaller animal, it just needs a lot less calories.
Right. There's more questions about Holly and the nursing cubs. I haven't seen them nurse this year. Have you?
I recall seeing the yearling trying to nurse,
Okay.
and Mom didn't want to allow that to happen, so she kind of just walked away, sort of just shrugged the yearling off. But I don't recall them actually sitting down to nurse.
The question is, assuming that her offspring is nursing, is she going to allow cub adult 503 to nurse also? And we saw that last year, and she did, but. I don't know. I guess I don't see sows nursing all that often. They tend to go away someplace a little more secretive. A few of them will just drop down right below the platform and nurse, but for the most part, they go away somewhere. I would assume they do, but I guess we'll have to leave that question sort of unanswered. Keep looking for it on the cams and let us know if you see it. But there's no reason for her to not be doing it, since she was nursing both of them last fall.
Yeah, and at this point, everything that we've seen so far indicates that Holly's treating the adopted cub like her biological offspring. There's really no difference in how she ends up treating it. It's bigger, so it ends up kind of pushing the small sibling around and not maybe sharing, because there's competition within the litter. We talk about that all the time. But the mother, she's treating it just the same as the smaller biological cub.
And the follow-on question, because there are a bunch of them again here about Holly, is will she take her adopted cub back to the den with her? And we have every reason to believe that she would do that, because she's given us no indication at this point that this is to her anything less than her own cub. So I would fully expect her to take it to the den with her. I would also imagine that if they all survive the winter, that and you can tell me if you disagree, but if they all survive the winter, that next spring would be the time that they would both be set free. That even though it's kind of a weird, messed up family, there's not a reason to believe she'd get rid of the adopted one now, and not a reason to believe that she would keep them longer, although we have seen that around here where they've kept them for another year.
Strange things happen with bears. Sometimes we try to pigeonhole bears into behaving a certain way, and then I'll say one thing about, a female would never abandon her cub in July. That just seems like a weird time of the year. And then it happens, just like it did last year.
Adoption? Nah, never happens.
We got questions all the time last year. Would another bear adopt that abandoned yearling? It's really unlikely. I don't count on it. And then 2 weeks later it happens. So bears do surprise us all the time. That's why, what you're seeing on the cams and informing us of those really unique things is important, because sometimes we miss that stuff. And with a million eyes out there watching, it can be
32 million eyes.
32 million, is that what it is now?
One of each.
Okay.
Let's see. We already talked about the time of the year. This is a 503, the cub adult question. Do you feel like he's larger than other, 2.5-year-olds at this point?
I don't think so. I think he's tall.
He's very tall.
He's very tall, but I don't think he's larger than average.
And Holly's not a particularly tall female, so I think having the two of them together, he looks enormous compared to her. He's not bigger than her, but he's every bit as tall as she is. But I think he's pretty normal. But I guess it'd be fun to weigh him, and as well as weigh every other 2.5-year-old. But that's a daunting task, to try to catch animals and weigh them, much less catching cubs and trying to do it. So it's not something we do. Let's see. In your time here, how many sows have you seen that have kept their cubs 1 year beyond normal? Normal.
Yeah, if they keep their cubs for 2 to 3 summers. We've seen them keep them into the 4th summer over the past 8 years. Just once, I think, and that was
Flo.
Yeah, it was Flo, 438 Flo. So.
That's the only one I can remember. Sometimes when we get asked questions like this, we sit here and go I never thought of that before. And then we run back and take a look at our book later, and we're ready to answer it the next time. But that's the only one I can think of was Flo.
And we see a lot of bears here, so it's hard for us to keep all the years straight. Someone will be like, when was the last time this bear had cubs or that bear had cubs? It can be difficult to keep all of those in order in your mind. So we do have to refer back to our bear monitoring database quite a bit, but it's only happened once along Brooks River in the past 8 years where bears kept their cubs until a fourth summer. So it's not a common event. So next year I would probably expect, for example, those yearlings that we see, many of them to be sort of cast off and set free, emancipated, and that could be kind of a violent event too.
Oh yeah.
We don't really witness that either, but mom is not kind to the cubs at that moment in time. And I can imagine it be a shocking event, because mom's been the protector, the provider,
best friend,
the best friend up until that point in time, and all of a sudden she just turns and is aggressively pushing that cub away.
Well, and we kind of saw it in a passive aggressive way last year with 402 when she just left cub adult up the tree for what, 2 days
at least. Yeah. And then he had to come down and be like, where's mom at? Mom's not here. What do I do now?
Yeah, that was pretty harsh. He's up there, he's not eating, he's not drinking. If he had come down, he would have come down the tree not quite in the thick of all the bears at the falls, but pretty darn close to being in the midst of them all. And that would have been traumatic and terrifying for him. And eventually, his hunger and his thirst got the best of him. He came down out of the tree. Mom was nowhere to be found. Pretty sure that if he had found her, she would have chased him away. I don't know how aggressive, but I saw some out at Hallow Bay a few years ago that it was pretty hard to watch.
Oh, was it? Okay.
They would try to get close and she'd run at them full speed. And at first, it's even confusing for us. I think we're looking at it going, why is she doing that to those cubs? And then you think, it's probably her cubs she's getting rid of. And we don't know for sure because we don't know those bears as well as we do the ones here. But it was interesting to watch these two cubs just keep trying to get close to this lone female, and she wouldn't have anything to do with it. Nature isn't always fun to watch.
And that's one of the things that we see on the bear camps too. We get to see these really great moments. Maybe if we have the opportunity to watch a bear nursing their cubs or sharing the first salmon of the season with their cub. But we also get to see the harsh realities of the world too. The bears are not killing their prey before they subdue it, so they're tearing the skin off of the salmon while the salmon is still alive.
Yep.
We also have the possibility of seeing bears killing other bears here at Brooks River, and we've told our camera operators, to see when you see some of those things, you don't want to turn the camera away, because it's the violent part of nature that's here in national parks. We're trying to protect the ecosystem as it is, and not just the good parts. So here at Katmai, the bears do face a lot of harsh realities, and that's something to be prepared for when you are watching the camps.
And I know there have been people discussing that possibility this year with so many cubs, that this may be the year that we do see a bear get killed on camera. And we've talked about it here, and I know the cam ops have talked about it. And hopefully, if it does happen, that people can look away. You can always, stop. You can always close the lid on your laptop, flip the iPad over, whatever, and not watch it. But it is documented so infrequently that we felt like we did want the cam operators to keep the camera on it so we could see what happened. We hope it doesn't happen, but if it does, at least everybody has the ability to look away if they don't want to see it. And I don't know how. I have not seen it. You didn't see it happen.
I was like close. I was on the falls platform, and it was in the grass behind, so I couldn't actually see the kill, but I could hear it, and it wasn't pleasant. And I talk about all the time how I try to remove myself from looking at the animals on an emotional basis, but when I saw that cub get separated from its mother and I saw the male pursuing it, it was hard to watch for me, because these bears are so smart. They're just the smartest domestic dogs, and you almost see like the fear and the panic in the cub's eyes, and standing on as trying to be an interested observer, but to try to distance myself emotionally, it was difficult at that moment in time. So I sympathize with a lot of people who don't maybe want to see that. But yeah, this is the bears live in a hard world. They live in a really tough world, and they also live in a world that exists outside of our ethics or morals too. So infanticide in the human world isn't necessarily something that's condoned, but in the bear world, that's just something that happens, and it happens in a lot of other organisms as well too, not just brown bears.
Right. We're at about the halfway point.
Are we already?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we have gotten through. We're up to like 7 or 8 questions right now.
Okay.
So we're at the halfway point. That doesn't look good, battery-wise.
We might make it. We might make it.
Well, we might run out of battery power here. We're having a challenge with that, but I wanted to go ahead and say if you'd like to post a question for us, we will try to answer it. Just need to go to the bottom part of the explore.org window and try to plug your information in there. I was thinking, do we have a power strip in there? I don't think so.
There is, but I'd have to unplug all the other things to go get it.
How about is there one all the way on the other box?
I can take a look if
Do you want
want
to run and do that, and I'll take the next question and see
all right.
see what we can find.
All right. Enjoy
Mike's going to
Ranger
go
Roy
see
for
if
a
we
little
can
bit.
solve this power issue. As you know from our chats, we're out in the middle of nowhere, and we sometimes have issues with the technology. And right now we're running low on one of our batteries, and I'm just worried we're going to run out before we're done with questions here. So I should move ahead. Some of these I'll wait till Mike gets back for, because I know he'll have some inputs on it. So we did answer the question about Holly and her cubs. Let's see. High cub mortality rate in Katmai. Could inbreeding be related to this? That question has come up before, I believe, and we've talked about it. We don't really have what a true case of inbreeding would be. We have a fresh 1 or 2 bears that come in that we've never seen before every couple of years, and that can rejuvenate the genetic stock here. What does happen though at times is that a dominant male will be the one that mates with most of the females, so that for a short period of time there'll be a bunch of them that are closely related. At least they have the same father. They'll have lots of different mothers, but the same father. But if you were looking for inbreeding, there would be genetic defects that would pop up, and I'm not really sure what those would be in the case of the bears. But the biologists that we've asked about this don't believe that we have any of the classic inbreeding examples here, because we're not isolated. There's not a wall around this place. This isn't an island. There's a free exchange of bears from anywhere near here. As long as they find their way into this area and can mix in with the other bears, they're going to be fine, and we're not going to have that inbreeding issue. Mike is coming back, and I don't see a battery backup in his, or a power strip in his hand. Where do moms take their cubs for the night? Any studies on this behavior? Well, the cubs would go with mom wherever mom is happening to go, and we'll see the bears from here. Some of them go a short distance off into the trees. Some of them will go a longer distance off into the forest. And 410 doesn't have any cubs with her right now, but if you've been watching the cams at the falls over the last couple of years, you'll see that 410 goes to just right over here on the hillside behind us and sleeps right at the water's edge. So they don't prepare any kind of a fancy bed for the night in most cases, though I've seen bead-nose do it at least once. They just go off, find a place in the forest, and take a nap, and that's where they would go with their cubs as well.
And that's what happened just a few minutes ago. Actually, was it
an hour ago?
About an hour ago now, with the 132 and our cubs that were nursing, and I was on Periscope for a little bit doing that. So hopefully a few of you got to see that on Explore.org's Twitter feed.
You know what I was thinking we can do? We can switch to this.
Okay.
And lose that. Sorry, thinking tech here right now. Because if we switch, we can run one of these, not both of them.
All right. Well, I can. If you want to swap over, then I can get the plug.
Let me create another.
Yeah.
Bear with us, folks, while we try to get this feed going again.
Okay. Let me know when you want me to switch the plugs.
and I have a 12 volt. If I had just one more piece of equipment, we could run for hours right here. I've got the camera back on, so
All right.
can they? I'm not sure which device they're using to see us. We'll switch back to this one.
So we think we have our audio issue resolved for the time being. Thanks for being patient with us. You know, we're in a remote location. Something happens, like a battery is drained when you think it's charged. It's not really an easy thing to do to go back and get another one. We have about a mile and a half walk to get it.
And they're bears.
And there are bears. Plethora of bears. So, lesson is be prepared. Maybe you should take this because I'm not sure which question we were on.
We sort of skipped around, and we're. Let's just jump to a general one. We've been very specific for a while,
Okay.
but we've thrown on words cub, subadult, and adult. Can you give us a breakdown on those, and you know, like what ages they would be?
So a cub is a bear that's dependent on mom. So if you are dependent on an adult female, even if you're like a giant 2.5 or 3.5-year-old, you're still hanging around with mom. Basically, you're in my mind, still a cub. A subadult would be a bear that's not yet fully mature, that is independent of mom. So that would be a bear that could be anywhere from 2.5 years old to about 5.5 years old. So they're subadults until they reach sexual maturity, and that, with just like in humans, there's no set age when that happens. It happens to be around 5 or 6 years old when they start to go through the bear equivalent of puberty, and that's when they become an adult bear. And adult bears are 6 and up for the most part. So that's the short and sweet of it, of those different age classes that we have here along the river. So you have cubs that are sort of like the kids of the bear world, the children of the bear world. You have the subadults that are like the teenagers of the bear world, and then you have the adult bears that are just like the adults of the bear world, not the subadults of the bear world.
I have another specific question about Dibbit and her missing cub. And have we seen it around, and is it possible it's over at Dumpling Creek? And I would say probably not possible that it's over there, not likely that it's there, because she would have shown it to go there when there was salmon there, and this would be not the time of the year where there would salmon. The salmon would be there. That would be a little bit later in the season, another week or so. But there's a possibility we've seen it, right? I mean, there's bears of the proper age skulking around here.
Yeah, there's been some small bears. We don't know if the bears are not. I actually haven't gotten a really good look at any of those really small bears. I've only seen them a couple times, so I don't know if it's 854's weaned offspring as a 2.5-year-old running around. We just don't know. It could be, could not be. The subadult bears, they disperse widely. Once mom pushes them away, sometimes they come back to the same areas where they feed, but a lot of times they wander far, far away and establish home ranges that aren't close to mom.
Yeah, while you were gone, I answered a question about inbreeding, and that's another example of how that isn't really a problem here, is that they do not always go exactly in their mother's footsteps once they go out on their own. Some third graders want to know about 2 subadults that are hanging around together. I'm not sure which ones. I don't know that I've seen that. Do you know 2 subadults that are hanging around together, and is that normal? Are they related?
Well, oftentimes younger bears will hang around together. So that's not abnormal. I'm not sure about quite a lot. You can have younger bears that are familiar with one another. They could be siblings that could stay with one another for a season. It's pretty rare for them to stay with each other throughout a whole summer, but they might. That's been documented to happen before. So when you're seeing some of these younger bears play with one another on dams, especially if they look an awful lot alike one another, it could be siblings. The thing is, if you're odds, it's going to be related bears that are maybe just comfortable in each other's presence that are hanging around each other.
I just checked the battery, and we have 5% left on the battery. And at some point, the Mac is that it needs to cut its losses and cut us off before it harms its battery. So I think we should wind it up for now. We have some other chats that are going on this week, right? We scheduled some more.
From the falls tomorrow at 8 p.m. So you can join me for that. Any questions during those podcasts? Rate the activity that you see over here. So you can join me for that at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. I'll be online to chat in the comment section sometime this week too, and then we'll try to get some other chats.
And we'll try to get to some more of the questions that were here. I really apologize for that. You guys had some really good questions that were coming in, but the tech just beat us again. So I think this year it's like Rangers 0, Tech
400.
4.
Yeah, we're pretty bad.
But thanks for joining, and we'll let you know as soon as possible. Time for the next time. Annapolis Notes at the Falls. That's a really good opportunity for you to get the experience that you might have if you were here visiting. Because if you were to come here any night, you'd find us out here at the Falls watching bears. And if you come here any time in the day, there'd be other rangers here watching bears. You just have conversations with join us for that. It'll be late for those of you on the East Coast, but that's the only time where we can really sneak into the Falls platform and have a good view without having to elbow other people out of their once in a lifetime trip to Falls.
And the bear activity is usually pretty good then too.
Usually really cooling off the body right now, so I think we'll go ahead and call it a night. Thanks for joining us. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, have a good evening, everyone.
Bye.